Ok, Uvas e Personalidades hoje com uma personagem diferente. Eu digo personagem porque lá está o autor do livro Anticipation Withdraw. Kerry Grant, tá? Hoje vamos falar em inglês, porque ele é novo, New Zealander, tá? Mas a edição vai se responsabilizar por pôr as legendas e vamos tentar fazer em inglês. Kerry Grant, welcome to my program, Grapes and Personalities, okay? Tell me,
well, thank you for having me, appreciate it.
New Zealander, tell me, what was the idea, the basic idea of writing Anticipated Withdrawal?
Well, it goes right back to my early days as a young boy. As far back as I can remember, I've had an interest in World War II aviation history. Any books that were written, first-hand accounts by the people who fought as biographies, their perspectives of what they went through in the battles, I consumed and read. Pretty much anybody who's anybody in those conflicts, I've read their biographies about. So that's gone through my adulthood. It's not just something I did as a child, it's just an interest I've had throughout. Somewhere in the process, it transpired from an interest to an idea of writing a novel that incorporated these people's accounts into fictitious people's lives, but very much from the perspective of what I've learned and heard from these first-hand accounts. Because one thing about the histories of war, if you pick up a history book that's just the facts, the hard cold facts about it, doesn't have much of the personality of the people, the emotions, some of the behind the scene things that happened that they've recorded that you don't see in the histories are there in the biographies, and that's very much the perspective of this book, of this series of novels, is to show the personal aspects of war and what happened in those different environments through the course of the history. So it's very much about the history of the war, keep to the authenticity of the history, but where the people, personalities and struggles, their dramas, their achievements, their backwards and forwarding are shown in a human way, emulating what actually happened in these different accounts I've read.
So did you try to humanize the story of the book?
Yes, humanise. So somewhere probably a good 30 years ago, the idea started growing in my head. I was in a line of work where it was very menial labour, agricultural work, driving a tractor. So I had a lot of time to think, so started getting these ideas, writing them down on paper, but it stayed very much as an idea that wasn't acted upon until it would have been maybe 15 years ago, 15 to 10 years ago that I started writing a bit. And then I went through a period, well I finished the book 5 years ago, but the last 5 years prior to that, probably the year prior to it being finished, I just started very comprehensively writing. And it all just flowed, it all just came. I was just amazed at how some of the characters' lives connected, interwove and became part of the story's fabric. It took a life of its own, the book. Like there's some chapters, it's about one of the main characters. It had the bones of the story, what I call the bones. It had the idea of what they were doing and where it fitted in with the overall objective of where the storyline's going. But there were parts about it that was empty and lifeless. It had no character. It didn't have the character of interaction with others. So I created other characters to interact with them, and some of those characters are now becoming main features in the storyline as well, and fit intricately into interactions that are going to happen with other characters from that have their own storyline going through.
Something that is different is that a New Zealander writing a book about the Second World War with the perspective, more humanized perspective, and then they released the book. How was the feedback from Amazon when you edited the book?
Initially went to a publishing house, 4 different publishing houses to publish it, and this was 5 years ago. The feedback from all of them was very good. One in particular
4 editors.
Yeah, 4 different editors, 4 different publishers said to publish it, but the problem with an unpublished author someone who's had work published beforehand, which I am, you have to put up the costs for publishing. None of them would say, oh, we'll take on board the costs. So there's a cost there involved in it. And with one publisher who I decided was giving me the best deal, and they're an English-based publishing house, I started paying money towards the cost of doing that. But it just became prohibitive with the cost of living. So I only got halfway through that process. So after through that 5-year process, I came slowly to the realisation that Amazon was going to be my best option, and they make it easy. With publishing in paperback, if you've got a good story, you're only paying for the publishing cost of each copy that's being sold by them, whereas with the others, you're paying up front.
Yeah, it's easier.
It's easier.
No, I think only on the view of the author or the author of the book. How does a New Zealander writes a book about the Second World War from a German perspective? Tell me, what's tell me the mixture, the recipe of that book. How that baby was born from a New Zealander, yes, based on the war documents, and from a German perspective. What is the recipe for that baby?
I suppose it's part of my psyche. I mean, though the Germans weren't the underdogs till the very end of the conflict, I've always sided with the underdog. In a sporting fixture, I'll go for the team that's less likely to win. It's just part of my psyche. I back the losers. No, I like to believe, and I like to believe for better. So that's part of it's that. Part of it is the Germans had a lot to admire about how they went about doing war. I mean, there's a lot of unsavoury stuff about places they went with the Holocaust and stuff, but their technology was leaps and bounds above the rest. You look at their machine gun Spandau, it was so good that the Americans copied it, and a very close replica of it came out with, I think it's called the M50 in the Vietnam conflict. It may have had a slightly different look to it, and the suppressors on it were a bit more efficient. To the point though where the suppressors were removed so it could fire more rounds, which is one of the things that Spandau had. But we had all these elements of their the 88mm anti-aircraft gun.
The space shuttle.
Yeah, the special. You drop it pointed at a tank and it will destroy any tank that came against it at the time. You got the V1, V2 and V3, which we still don't really, we don't know what the V3 and V4 were.
V3 and V4 went to the moon, probably. The V3 and V4 went to the moon, but that's another story.
That's another story. But the V2, a rocket that went into the stratosphere and then came vertically down, there's no defence against it, blew out a whole block of houses. If they had been developed earlier in the war, England, it would be another story, and it would have probably been written by the English perspective. And it does go very contrary to the New Zealand psyche, because we did fight for the English in the English war. We are a country that was settled by the English about 100 years prior to that conflict. Very much the attitude of the time was they were the homeland. Wherever they went in battle, we joined them and supported them. But I heard good things from those who came back from the conflict about how the Germans carried themselves in battle, and there was a respect between Germans and especially Kiwis. I saw it in the accounts I read. I can't quote a name here, but a German paratrooper wrote his account of being paratrooper, and he said some pretty, and he was typically German. German people can be pretty, we know what we're about, and we don't give concessions where it's not due to other people. But he gave concessions for the Kiwis. That whenever they came across us in battle, they always knew they had a good opponent, and things were going to be tough.
So you were telling me that they would say and confirm that the Geneva Convention existed.
Yes.
Behind the lines.
It did.
Now it's that they don't the conversation because they had a lot of time. There was a little detail that I was talking to him that I didn't know that on the famous battle of the Graf Spear, River Plate, there was a New Zealander ship that was the...
It was the Ajax, the light cruiser Ajax. It was on lease from England, so it was an English ship which New Zealand paid money to crew, but all the crew on it were New Zealanders. Yes. And what transpired in the battle was the admiral on board the Graf Spey, which I can't. Yeah, I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure. It might have been Spear, but I'm not sure. I might get my name. But he assumed that because these British ships came chasing towards him, and he knew they weren't battleships because they were smaller in size than a battleship, he assumed they were destroyers trying to come closer to release their torpedoes, which is how destroyers acted. So he let them get closer. But the reason these light cruisers were charging in close was so they could come in range with their guns, which had a shorter range to this battleship. So he got quite a bit of he took quite a bit of damage upon his ship in this battle, but the Achilles, which was the other ship, which was an Australian crewed ship, had very severe damage done to it. It caught fire and they nearly lost it. They lost a lot of crew, whereas the British ship came off a lot lighter from the account. So yeah, we have a history there. Unfortunately, the Germans were fooled by the British radio communications at the time. They thought there was a lot of ships when after they'd gone back into port, a neutral port, to take repairs. The admiral decided when they came out of port to scuttle his ship. He didn't want to be responsible for the senseless death of his crew, so he made that decision. But it turned out he had been beguiled by the British Secret Service people with their false radio communications to phantom ships that didn't exist out there. So yeah.
Also, that became an history. Yeah, it became a rather strategic material for the contemporary battle, right? Also, they have the same similar tactics to fool the enemy.
Yeah, very much so. So I don't know if it was the origins of it. I don't know of any other accounts prior to it in my knowledge of military history. Maybe some of it may have happened in World War One with battles back then. I don't know how effective the radio communications were back then. Radio communication.
Korea and Japan did use it with the Sioux Indians, right? With the Sioux Indians, the Americans took advantage.
Yeah, they used the Sioux Indians to communicate over radio where the Germans couldn't understand. Yeah, it was very effective.
Just to finish it, your book is on the Amazon, right?
Yeah, so it's under the title name. I'm under the pen name of Bruce Anthony, so it's not under Kerry Grant, but Bruce Anthony. That's just it's a play on my name. I've got four names in my name, and that's the two middle names in reverse.
But it's not a ghostwriter, right? Bruce Anthony it's him.
It's for sure me. So under the author Bruce Anthony, 1940 Precipitated Withdrawal. It's on Amazon, paperback and as an ebook. It's conservatively priced. It's in the $16 US range, which is probably around the 45 reais. For 35 reais.
35, yeah, we saw it, I think, $14, right?
Yeah, 16.
$16, mas 70 reais, para isso é 70 reais. Não? Não chega? Não, mas depois vocês fazem o cálculo, tá?
Yeah. So, anyway, it's available to the Brazilian market. Currently, I've begun translating it to Portuguese, which is quite a protracted process because there's a lot of dialogue in there, and it needs to be getting the right meaning in the transcription, which can be easier said than done. So, hopefully, within the next 6 months, it will come out in Portuguese.
E foi Kerry Grant. Just one last question. A New Zealander in Brazil, married to the Brazil woman. The first
happily.
Yeah, happily. Tell me something. The common, the simpler person, a simple person that knows Bruce Anthony for the first time for an autograph. Yes. What would they see in your eyes?
What would they see in my eyes? Appreciation for the Brazilian people. I appreciate how you wear your emotion on your sleeve. You are not afraid to be who you are and how you present yourself to other people. I love that about the Brazilian people. So be yourself, say you like the book, you like the book, you don't like the book, you don't like the book, that's good. We can have a conversation. One thing I love about the Brazilian people is we can have a conversation where we disagree on some matters and be very vocal, very adamant about that. But once we've said our piece, we're the best of friends afterwards. New Zealand, English way of doing things, no? You go there in a conversation with someone, that's the end of your friendship. So,
like
which is wrong.
Argentina.
It's wrong.
It's right.
Yeah.
E foi Kerry Grant. Kerry, obrigado por teres vindo a Uvas e Personalidades, tá? Vejam os contactos dele, a referência também na Amazon do livro dele, tá? E vamos fazer um pequeno intervalo e voltamos, já já.
Tá com saudade de viajar? Então arroche e descubra o Rio Grande do Norte, uma lindeza de lugar. Aqui você tem um mundo pra passear. Natal, Pipa, Galinhos, gostoso, mas se quer um friozinho maravilhoso, não falta serra pra você aproveitar. Aqui é tudo perto, pode vir de carro, avião, até a pé. Tem Santa Rita de Cássia pra quem tem fé, mas menino, tem até montanha pra descer de rapé.
O Rio Grande do Norte tem um mundo para você aproveitar. Vamos viajar? Turismo preparado e seguro é logo ali. Visite riograndedonorte.com.br.
Ok, Uvas e Personalidades agora com uma novidade. Dicas da Fran. O masculino no universo feminino. Eu acho que não encaixa, mas vamos ver a experiência. Fran, o que é que tu achas disto?
Eu acho que super combina e a prova diz que em breve vocês vão ver uma mudança radical no meu amigo João. Ele vai aparecer lindo e loiro, João.
Coisa linda. Brad Pitt em Guaratuba. Vamos lá ver o que é que vai sair daqui. Dicas da Fran agora, já brevemente, Uvas e Personalidades. Vamos ver isso? Olha a transformação.
Bom dia, pessoal! Começando hoje o nosso programa Dicas da Fran, eu convido você a conhecer esse meu espaço. Estamos aqui em Guaratuba, o sol está brilhando e você aí na sua casa vai aprender um pouquinho hoje sobre microagulhamento. E quando você estiver aqui no litoral, não se esqueça, passe aqui na Fran Caetano, fábrica de loiros.
Olá, eu sou Nali Cruz e vou estar explicando um pouquinho mais sobre o procedimento de microagulhamento aqui no Fran Caetano. Venha acompanhar o nosso procedimento. Olá, eu sou Nali Cruz, estou com a minha paciente Carla e nós vamos começar o processo de microagulhamento. Nesse primeiro processo, vamos fazer a higienização da pele.
Agora nós vamos iniciar o processo de microagulhamento na pele da Carla. Para você entender um pouquinho melhor sobre o microagulhamento, vou explicar para vocês o procedimento. Ele é um procedimento minimamente invasivo que provoca microperfurações na pele através de agulhas finas. O procedimento pode estar sendo realizado através de rollers ou de canetas elétricas. No caso da Carla, eu estou usando a Derma Pen, que é a caneta elétrica. Nela, vamos fazer o procedimento de microagulhamento mais conhecido como Drug Delivery. Drug Delivery é um tratamento de finalidade médica ou estética. Ele se baseia em qualquer procedimento no qual rompemos a barreira superficial da pele para melhor penetrar ativos que possam ajudar em tratamentos como clareamento de manchas, ou estímulos de colágeno em regiões que apresentam perda de elasticidade e melhora de lesões inflamatórias, como espinha ou em quadros de queda de cabelo. A técnica também entrega bons resultados, amenizando rugas, suavizando cicatrizes e até mesmo atuando no tratamento de doenças como o vitiligo, a micose e a psoríase.
Chegamos ao final do procedimento. Como vocês podem observar, ela tem pequenas gotículas de sangue no rosto. Isso é normal devido às linfas faciais que nós temos, tá? Vamos passar o produto para higienizar e tirar todas as bactérias possíveis que no procedimento, como ocasionou a perfuração da pele, então nós vamos entrar com esse produto justamente para evitar as bactérias e os fungos que ela vai ter aí no seu dia a dia. Agora nós vamos finalizar o procedimento com um produto chamado Skin Correction. Ele é da SkinCeuticals, eu gosto bastante de usar ele no meu procedimento, porque ele é específico para uma pele sensível e sensibilizada. Então, como essa pele está bastante sensibilizada, nós vamos entrar com esse produto para acalmar essa pele e com os ativos cicatrizantes. Finalizamos o procedimento da Carla e nesse procedimento dessa primeira sessão, vamos aguardar 30 dias para a segunda sessão. Na primeira sessão, dificilmente a gente ter a visibilidade do procedimento agindo. É questão de rugas, então assim, a gente tem que ter um olhar um pouco mais clínico para ver isso. Ela vai chegar em casa, ela não vai ver tanta diferença, mas no decorrer de 30 dias, essa renovação celular vai estar sendo feita, a própria pele dela, as próprias células. Para ela vir na segunda sessão, já vai estar um pouquinho mais fina a pele dela. Então, a partir da segunda sessão é que nós começamos a ver a diferença nas rugas, na flacidez. E quando chega na terceira sessão, nós chegamos no ponto de 70% a 75% de mudança na pele da Carla. Daqui 24 horas ela vai ter que entrar com o filtro solar. Sempre eu indico um FPS 60. Porque ele tem um FPS maior e ela pode também estar usando um fotoprotetor solar com cor, que daí vai dar essa proteção tanto da luz visível, quanto da luz azul, quanto da luz de celular, tela, televisão, e isso vai fazer com que nós conseguimos proteger todo o DNA do colágeno, da elastina. Ela vai para casa agora, vai evitar o sol, vai durante 24 horas até a reaplicação do fotoprotetor. Durante o dia eu passei uns produtinhos para ela estar utilizando, uma vitamina C, e à noite ela vai passar um hidratante com vitamina E, aonde isso vai me ajudar em 50% no tratamento do procedimento que ela fez aqui no nosso estúdio.
Estamos aí encerrando mais uma parte do programa Dicas da Fran, que hoje nós tratamos com a parte de estética facial com a Liê Cruz, e foi feito aqui para vocês entenderem. O procedimento que vocês acompanharam foi microagulhamento, é isso, Nali?
Isso mesmo.
A nossa cliente de hoje sofreu dor?
Não dói muito.
Não foi suportável?
Razoável, bem tranquilo.
Muitas de vocês aí se perguntaram e acompanharam todo o histórico para saber sobre a dor, qual foi o procedimento que aconteceu, como é, né, por curiosidade. E aqui tá a nossa querida Carla para apresentar para você. O rosto fica um pouquinho inchadinho, faz parte mesmo desse procedimento, né, Nali?
Sim, é normal porque nós tivemos uma hiperemia facial ali. Então, esse inchaço ele vai acabar saindo assim que ela chegar em casa. Ela pode também estar fazendo uma compressa com gelo para diminuir o inchaço.
E Nali, todas as peles acontecem isso?
Não, nem todas as peles acontecem. Tem peles um pouco mais sensíveis, como a da Carla, que é bastante sensibilizada e tem rosácea. Então acaba acontecendo um pouquinho mais de inchaço que o normal, mas é normal acontecer.
Ok. E também esse procedimento, lembrando que ele vai ser apresentado nas nossas outras dicas da Fran, que é um procedimento que vai... Quantas vezes ainda faremos?
Vai ser 3 sessões de procedimento.
3 sessões, vocês vão acompanhar as mudanças que vão ocorrer nesse período, ok? Então eu te convido a vir assistir junto com a sua família, com aquela garota especial que você tá aí, mais um pouquinho de Uvas e Personalidades, junto com a gente aqui nos Dicas da Fran Caetano, Fábrica de Longes.